Hey YouTube, what's up? Recently, the leaders around the globe started disrespecting Obama. Obama visited Cuba, almost like 86 years since the last president of the United States visited Cuba. But on his arrival in the airport, the leader of Cuba, Raul Castro, didn't show up. That was pretty bad because it's a historic visit by an American president, but the Cuban leader didn't show up. And about 10 days back, the Filipino leader called Obama a son of a bitch.
Who is he?
Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte amped up his use of vulgar language, taunting President Obama to not bring up the Philippines' record of killing alleged drug users and suspects during a planned meeting of Southeast Asian leaders in Laos.
I am a president of a sovereign state, and we have long ceased to be a colony. I do not have any master except the Filipino people.
Duterte warning anyone who asks him about the killings, some 2,000 since May.
You must be respectful. Putang ina, mumurahin kita dyan sa...
Son of a bitch. I'll curse you in front of everybody.
Tell that to everybody.
And about a few days back, in Obama's visit to China for the G20 summit, the Chinese disrespected him by not sending the staircase, like the way that they sent to greet the rest of the leaders of the world.
The president's trip was marked by an awkward opening moment, in fact, when he was forced to exit the belly of Air Force One. Some observers described it as a Chinese snub.
Every head of state visiting China for the G20 summit was greeted with pomp and circumstance the moment their plane doors opened. But President Obama's arrival did not go smoothly. As he stepped off Air Force One, the red carpeted stairs were missing, forcing President Obama to use an alternate exit typically reserved for war zones. On the tarmac, a Chinese minder tried to block U.S. press access, screaming at a White House aide, "This is our country, this is our airport." Then he yelled at National Security Advisor Susan Rice and tried to prevent her from entering the president's motorcade. The Secret Service had to intervene. Rice told a reporter they did things that weren't anticipated.
So I see a lot of videos in YouTube which claims that it's because of Obama's incompetence as a leader. Here's my opinion. Saying that Obama's incompetence as a leader is the only reason why he is disrespected is like saying that a couple that got divorced, they got divorced just because of the last fight that they had. Of course, people don't get divorced just based on a single fight. Let me just explain you a bit better. In any relationship that's on the verge of a collapse, you can see a gradual buildup of frustration and anger and dissatisfaction. And all this frustration and anger builds up over time. It's a steady process. Separation doesn't happen on a single day or a period of time. So the moment the dissatisfaction reaches to a threshold, the couples break up. Likewise, the United States today is undergoing a major crisis. I'm not talking about a financial crisis that you can recover from, but what I'm referring to is a crisis of integrity. So what am I talking about? United States has constantly displayed a pattern of lying to its citizens and to the people of the world in order to go for war. So it's not just happening recently, but it's happening for the past 100 years, right from the First World War. So considering the brevity of my video, I just would like to choose only selected lies by the United States government for the purpose of war. The Vietnam War was based on a lie.
A military campaign initiated as a result of a lie, the war in Vietnam. A war that would claim the lives of 45,000 Americans and 1.5 million Vietnamese. In August 1964, 2 American destroyers in the Gulf of Tonkin reported that they had been attacked by North Vietnamese torpedo boats. An error, as the crew would later recognize and report to Washington. But President Johnson wasn't interested in the correction. He used the false reports to gain authorization from Congress to send American troops to Southeast Asia.
This was an incredible lesson for an intelligence officer, the entire role of intelligence in the Vietnam War. The Tonkin Gulf incident, we know that there was no incident on the second night. That was immediately reported. And so my colleagues, I was working on Soviet policy toward Vietnam, so I was embedded, if you'll pardon the term, with those working on North Vietnamese matters. And so I watched them write up our normal publication for the next morning saying there didn't appear to be an incident that day. And then I heard that they were not going to be allowed to publish that. And I inquired, and they said, yes, that's not really going to be published because the president has decided to bomb the North Vietnamese communists, and we don't want to wear out our welcome at the White House. Now, to us intelligence officers, that is anathema. That is beyond the pale. Our business is to tell it like it is.
After the Twin Tower attack, the United States announced to its citizens and to the rest of the world a war on terror. And they took the Americans in war in Afghanistan, claiming that they are going on war to capture bin Laden. And look at the comments from Bush.
So I don't know where he is, nor do, I just don't spend that much time on him, I'll be honest with you.
So looking at the lack of interest that Bush shows in finding bin Laden shows that they probably didn't go on war in Afghanistan to capture bin Laden. It may be for the $1 trillion worth of lithium in Afghanistan. And they continued the lies in Iraq. They said Iraq had weapons of mass destruction, and they took the Americans in war to Iraq. That resulted in the death of thousands of Americans and tens of thousands of Iraqis. And that led to the creation of ISIS, which is threatening the globe right now. And look at what Bush says about Iraq.
Intelligence gathered by this and other governments leaves no doubt that the Iraqi regime continues to possess and conceal some of the most lethal weapons ever devised. The main reason we went into Iraq at the time was we thought he had weapons of mass destruction. It turns out he didn't, but he had the capacity to make weapons of mass destruction. But I also talked about the human suffering in Iraq. Those weapons of mass destruction got to be somewhere.
See the way that this guy, this fucking asshole, comments about not finding the weapons of mass destruction. There are thousands of families, American families, that have lost their loved ones in the fight in Iraq. And this asshole makes a joke of it. And then Hillary continued her lies. Of course, as Hillary only lies, but she continued the lies. They said they're going to topple Gaddafi just because of humanitarian reasons. And it turned out to be a lie. Just look at it.
Nick, you had a chance to speak with the chief prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, the issue being Gaddafi, the Libyans, what they're doing. What did he tell you?
Well, one of the things he wants to investigate now, he says, his priority is to investigate allegations of rape that may be systematic and rape that's being assisted, he said, by the distribution of Viagra or Viagra-like products, sexually performance-enhancing products that are getting in the hands of Gaddafi's forces and are being used as part of gang rape. And these are allegations that are surfacing that he says he wants to investigate as a priority.
Until this pretext was overturned by a pesky reporter asking for actual evidence of these crimes.
How many people have been killed, and in which town, in which site, and what kind of the crimes he has ever done in your investigations?
I advise you to read the application of the prosecutor's office, many pages, I think it was 77 pages. We describe in detail the facts, most of it is public.
As pointed out by Luis Moreno Ocampo, the document does have 77 pages, but most of its content is not public. Pages 17 to 71 have been redacted, precisely the ones enclosing the summaries of evidence and testimonies.
And then Syria.
The indiscriminate slaughter of civilians, the killing of women and children and innocent bystanders by chemical weapons is a moral obscenity. By any standard, it is inexcusable, and despite the excuses and equivocations that some have manufactured, it is undeniable.
A study has now challenged the US claim that Syrian government forces carried out the attack. The study is being conducted by the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, the MIT. Based on mathematical calculations, the study examined the range of the improvised rocket used in the attack, saying it was too short to have been launched from government-controlled areas. The MIT report concludes that based on the firing range and the troop locations, all possible launching points within a 2-kilometer radius were in insurgent-controlled areas. The report goes on to challenge the U.S. Secretary of State's key assessments of the chemical attack that he presented to the American people last August in an effort to muster support for a military strike on Syria.
And massive worldwide protests, organized on the back of the public's incredulity at yet another Iraq WMD-like lie, managed to get the Obama administration to back off its headlong rush to war.
All those lies that the United States government had said to the people of the United States and to the rest of the world in order to get them onto war had created a problem of integrity in the government of the United States. And the consequences of the integrity crisis is what Obama is experiencing now. So it's not the end, but rather it's just the beginning. So if the United States had lied from the Vietnam War or even from the First World War, why should Obama be disrespected? The presidents like Bill Clinton or maybe Lyndon Johnson should have been disrespected. Why Obama? The reason is internet. Today is the age of the internet, wherein a person in one corner of the world is connected to the rest of the world using YouTube, WhatsApp, and Facebook. So if one person experiences a problem, and if he puts that problem into the internet, the rest of the world gets to know about it. So YouTube, WhatsApp, and Facebook has connected all the individuals in the world. And the information of the lies said by the United States government is all around the internet. And everybody is getting aware of it gradually. So the respect, value, and the integrity of the United States is going down for all the lies and the wrongdoings that the United States government has done in the past. Like Bernie Sanders said, is the money in politics that the reason for all the problems. Why? Because if a presidential candidate gets money from big donors like banks and oil companies, then the moment that they become the president, then they have an obligation to take actions in such a way that his or her donors have a business gain. Because the President of the United States is not for the people, but for the corporates. And the corporates may have a business gain if the United States is going on war. So they push the government of the United States to go on war. And because people of the United States are not for war, the only option that the government has is to lie to the public and to the rest of the world. And that's what is happening today. So what is the solution for this? The solution is to choose a president who is not corporate controlled. Bernie Sanders is a perfect candidate, but however, because he is no more in the race, honestly I feel Trump is not a bad choice. Trump may not be a perfect candidate, but choosing Trump can be considered as a step taken by the Americans in choosing a president who is not corporate controlled. And before I finish, the next time your spouse gets angry with you, even for trivial things, then it doesn't mean that your spouse is angry about that trivial thing alone, but rather they may be responding with anger for the history of all those frustrations that they have accumulated so far. Likewise, if Obama is disrespected, then that's not just because of Obama alone, but rather it may also be due to the history of wrongdoings done by the United States to the rest of the world. Subscribe if you like my opinion.